Mitch McConnell has a fall, which affects his ability to be the Senate Minority Leader because he is in the hospital now and will possibly be for a couple days, although Senate Republicans are hopeful that he will make a full recovery. So we'll be talking about that and some of the duplicity of our friends to the left who have decided to make this the issue that they die on. So we'll be talking about that, what's happening there, and what this means for the Senate going forward. In other news, Tucker Carlson lets off another barrage of information, and this time actually I would call this a shot across the bow. So we'll actually sit down and listen to probably the majority. I don't think we'll go the full 8 minutes this time, but the majority of the Tucker video that was released today, and talk about what this means, plus some other details around the investigation. Biden has officially proposed his budget plan to cope with the debt ceiling, and Republicans say absolutely not. So we'll be talking just a bit about that and where that goes and what's happening there. And we have got a very lengthy, extended series of government officials behaving badly. I saved up everything from the week, and we'll go over that before we move on to other news. Plus, I have got things that I like and things that I hate. It's going to be all of this and more over on Contemporary. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Let's see, which button on my control panel turns the microphone on? Let me see if I can remember how to do that, because apparently yesterday I couldn't remember how to do that. And we went through the entire warm open. We got the cold open just fine. I remembered to turn the microphone on for the cold open, but we got through the entire warm open with absolutely no voice. So we're not going to do that today. I did make sure to go in and check and make sure that I had the microphone on. So, and we have got a ton to go over here today. Wait till you see the stack today. It's big. It's huge. There's a lot going on there, and we're going to get through as much of it as we can. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult because, again, working late plus weather getting home, on top of the fact that we've got another almost 8-minute clip from Tucker Carlson that we're going to go over and stop, pause, analyze as he's talking about this as well over here on Contemporary. So we're going to get right into it as fast as we can before we get started. Make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Britt, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more, as we come together to bring you a better news and culture experience for the common man, That is right. For too long, we've all got our news from people who who wear suits that cost more than our houses. No more do we carry anything like that. Instead, get your news, get your culture, get your music, get your church, get your gossip, get your true crime from people who have had to make some of the same decisions that you do and know what's important to you, because a lot of them are just like you. Some of them are, we're all very different, but a lot of them are just like you in the fact that they've looked at this. Some of us have had to look down and wonder if we're going to pay rent or bills or eat. I've had to make that decision before. Some of us have been in situations where we're forced to rent before because either there's nothing affordable for us to live in or a series of bad luck has befallen us, and, well, we just got done fixing it. So go check out news from people who have had to make the same decisions that you have, and go check out that great programming. Let's get down into the news of the day, and we start today, as we always do, with the Dow. Oops, we're already down to things I like and things that I hate. We will start with the Dow, and while we're doing that, if you guys want to take some time and tell some people to get in here, get a nice lively live chat going here over what we have to say here. I'm really proud of the stack that I have of government officials behaving badly, and I even have some of government officials behaving properly. Looking into the Dow today, the Dow is at 32,254.86. It started off well. It actually started to rally as we began the day, and the investors were all happy over the fact that unemployment rates and unemployment initial claims came in higher than normal. But after banks got beaten to crap on their earnings reports, it became clear that yes, no, we are actually going to dump out the rest of the stock as well. So we are looking at a sharp loss on the Dow, down 543.54 points, or 1.66% on the day. I mean, we're not losing down to 17,000 again like we did before, and I'd like to see a sub 10,000 Dow, even if for a moment, especially during this administration. Honestly, I can say that they deserve it, but that's what we see coming off the markets. Your Bitcoin also had a fairly interesting run today, except, yeah, this new Google thing, by the way, where they shut down Windows if you're not looking at them right away, and I know it's to save memory, but it is a little bit of a frustration here. Looking in at the Bitcoin today had another sheer drop off. Guess what? Bitcoin's on sale though, but ending today down 9.9%, or $2,221 and 10 US cents down. That is to $20,214 and 80 US cents. Looking at your gas prices, let that load. This whole load and unload thing we might be using a different browser at this point. Okay, there we go. Looking in at your gas prices around the Madison area, using this as a benchmark, of course, to look in at the gas prices that have changed, because we've used the same area since we started looking at gas prices, how they have changed day over day, and as of today, they are holding steady. No news on the gas price front. Gas did jump where I am again. We are now at $3.39, so we're on par with Madison. So that is where we are at looking for that. Let's grab one from CNBC, talking about the markets. From CNBC, stock futures are down slightly following Thursday's market sell-off, fueled by banks, from Alex Herring. Stock futures inched lower Thursday as investors look to upcoming job data for clues onto how the Federal Reserve may move forward. The action follows a steep sell-off led by bank shares. Futures tied to the Dow lost 52 points, or 0.2%. The S&P and the Nasdaq each shed 0.2, and that's in the futures. That's in overnight trading. Wall Street posted a losing session on Thursday. The Nasdaq recorded a 2.05% slide, while the S&P posted a 1.85% dip. The Dow lost 543.54 points, or 1.66%, as the 30 stock index closed below its 200-day moving average for the first time since November 9th. All three indices are on track to end the week down by at least 3%. Financials led the market down in Thursday's session, pulled down by the SVP Financials' 60% plunge after it announced a plan to raise more than $2 billion in capital in a bid to offset losses from bond sales. The announcement spurred a sell-off across the financial sector, as investors were increasingly concerned that higher interest rates would result in banks facing losses on loans due to borrower defaults. Yeah, that's a reality right now, and again, as variable rates and people having to take out new cards. This is one of the things that people don't look at when we look at the new rates, is the inflation is still going batshit. And yes, we are starting to see the layoffs, and the initial unemployment claims are starting to trickle in. But what that means is people that do have the means at this point are taking out lines of credit to try to offset some of this, with the hopes that they'll get back into the job market and pay it all back off. The problem is that these lines of credit, the credit card, the personal loan, the new car loan, if they have to go down that route, or anything else, is at a massively increased cost to what it would be just a year ago. And now, of course, we've got 0% cards. I've got one of those currently. Actually, that's going to be coming up in the near future here pretty soon. I'm going to have to start paying interest on. Well, no, I've got 6 months, because I got that one in September, and I've got 12 months 0%. So maybe we can go get that one paid off. That would be nice. But you've got that initial term, and people were starting to take out these lines of credit too, starting last year, like I did. Whereas now, once the interest rate starts to hit, even after the crunch of the raising interest rate, I guarantee we're going to see at least an increase in default. I don't know if it's going to be a huge increase yet. I don't have a crystal ball. But I can almost guarantee that we're going to start to see maybe a 0.5% or 1% increase in defaults coming into this. And that's going to hurt the profit margin of the banks. Now, if it's really big, like 25, 30%, yeah, you're going to start to see a sell-off that makes today's look like a cakewalk. Wall Street is bracing for a February jobs report, which is slated to be released on 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Economists polled by Dow expect non-farms to rise 225,000 in the month, which would mark the slowdown from growth in January's unexpected large gain of 517,000. Yeah, we're actually talking about that right now. The unemployment rate is expected to remain unchanged from January, when it hit a low not seen since 1969 at 3.4%. According to Dow Jones, data on hourly wages is expected to show hourly wage increases from 0.4 from the prior month for a year-over-year gain of 4.8%, economists estimate. I'm going to tell you right now, we have gone for almost 3 weeks in a row with my second financial article being an article about massive layoffs in the tech sector from massive companies, which means that they're sending out thousands of people back out into the wild to go find work. I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't buy this 3.4% number. And I know a lot of this is also having to do with discouraged people falling off of the unemployment rate, because this is unemployment insurance, not necessarily the workforce participation rate. But I don't believe this. Plain and simple. Now, one of the things that's going to be affecting this is the fact that these tech sector jobs, when they are getting laid off, they are going on to severance packages, which are holding them for a little while. So they're not going to the unemployment market just yet. And I've never worked a job where I've had a severance package, so I can tell you, I don't know how that works, whether or not if you take a severance package, if you can go back on unemployment after that. That's a possibility that you could, but I don't know how that works. But I do have to wonder if we're going to start to see a sharp jump in this number after some of the severance packages start to run out. But we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. CNBC finishes off, or what we are going to read is going to finish off with this. While having more jobs is considered good for the economy, a better than expected report can push stocks lower. According to Brad McMillan, Chief Investment Officer for Commonwealth Financial Network, that's because more workers can signal more demand, he said, which would indicate higher inflation. Yeah, and that's how they're trying to tame inflation. They're trying to make it hard for you to open a business, hard for you to employ people, harder for you to employ and fill the jobs that you already have, to get more people on unemployment so they stop spending money from the government. Technically, unemployment, of course, is not government money. It's matched by government, and it's processed by the government, but it is an insurance that's paid in by your employer. So that's what they want to see. They want to see massive unemployment so people stop buying, so that the people who sell stuff will have to lower the prices or keep the prices steady to keep people buying. But that's what we see coming for that. Let's look at the layoffs. And this is not technically a layoff, but it's slimy business no matter what. From CNN, GM employees are strongly encouraged to consider its voluntary separation program. Translation: quit. Take probably a stipend. I'm guessing that's what they have going in there. I haven't read this article. But just quit, walk away from your job, and then we don't have to pay your unemployment insurance. And you don't have to go on the unemployment statistics. Isn't that fun? We can cook the numbers. From Jordan Falinsky. GM said on January it would save $2 billion without planning any layoffs, but on Thursday it said it's looking for workers to leave voluntarily. Don't do it. Make them fire you. In a regulatory filing, the automaker said it was looking to save costs through attrition and a voluntary separation program, which is eligible employees would get a lump sum payment and other severance based on how long they worked at the company. The buyouts would cost the company $1.5 billion before taxes this year, and it's all going to be a write-off because they can call that charity. I need to do beard maintenance. Holy crap. The voluntary separation program will be offered to all U.S. salaried employees with at least 5 years of service and the global executives that have been with the company for at least 2 years, a GM spokesperson told CNN. In a statement, the company said employees are strongly encouraged to consider the program. By permanently bringing down structured costs, we can improve vehicle profitability and remain nimble in an increasingly competitive market, a GM spokesperson said in a statement. The news follows the elimination of hundreds of salaried worker jobs. Earlier this month, a person familiar with the plans told CNN and those job cuts would affect a few hundred white-collar employees globally. GM has 167,000 employees globally, with 124,000 in North America. That includes more than 42,000 members of the UAW. The company recently reported a record annual profit for 2022 and also announced plans to reduce costs by $2 billion over the next 2 months, including corporate overhead across the board. But at the time, CEO Mary Barra told investors, "I do want to be clear though, we're not planning layoffs. We're limiting our hiring to only the most strategically important roles and we'll use attrition to help manage overall headcount." So, there it is. They're not technically laying off, but they're asking you for your permission if they can lay you off. Here, take all this money, then you don't get to be an unemployment statistic. You may or may not, and again, I don't understand how that works, but you may or may not be able to file for unemployment. And we get to cut our costs. Doesn't that sound like a sweet deal? Sounds shady, and I would probably never buy another GM vehicle again. As much of a fan as I am of Camaros, which I am, when I switched sides, when I switched teams and went from Chevy to Ford, I still maintained my absolute love affair with Camaros. I don't know if I can do it anymore. Not because I don't like the car, I really do. I really do a lot, but if that company is going to be doing this crap, I don't want to be seen driving something with their emblem on it. Plain and simple. If possible, of course, if the bottom drops out and I need to find something cheap to get back and forth to work, that's probably still going to be a GM vehicle. They're cheap and they run forever. Necessity trumps political, what's the word I'm looking for? Showmanship. But that's what we have for finance for the day, and it looks like fear has moved into the Fear and Greed Index. Let's look at our main news of the day. We are going to start with a little bit of breaking news. Number one, coming from NBC News, Senate Minority Leader McConnell is being treated for a concussion after a fall. From Liz Brown-Kaiser, Ryan Nobles, Julie Sirkin, and Sahil Kapoor. Senate Minority Leader Turtleman McConnell was hospitalized and is being treated for a concussion after tripping at a hotel on Wednesday night, a spokesman said. Leader McConnell tripped at a dinner event on Wednesday and has been admitted to the hospital and is being treated for a concussion. McConnell's communications director, David Popp, said Thursday in a statement, he is expected to remain in the hospital for a few days of observation and treatment. The leader is grateful to the medical professionals for their care and to his colleagues for their warm wishes. McConnell fell after an event for the Senate Leadership Fund, a Republican super PAC aligned with McConnell and GOP leadership, at the Waldorf Astoria in Washington. Two senators who attended told NBC News. So, Mitch McConnell fell. Now, I, as usual, wish the best and the full recovery for him. I want to see Mitch McConnell out of the Senate, but not because he died. I hope that Mitch McConnell leads a long, healthy, and happy life. But I want to talk just a bit about something that's happening in the midst of this here. I didn't think to put it on the stack. Well, I did think to put it on the stack, and then it fell back out of my mind. But the reaction of our friends to the left, who are coming out and putting on a show. Let me find their tweet. I don't know if they will or not. Yes, this is their show, their showmanship right here. Now, at any other time in history, call to activism would be screaming, Hey, good riddance. Hey, look, we're getting rid of him. Hey, one down, many more to go. But this time, and of course it's this time, they haven't come back out to say, they have to come back out and say this because, and this goes right on to the thing with Stacey Abrams. When Stacey Abrams, hey, look, I'm calling to resign. I'm calling to come out and say that I concede Brian Kemp won. In spite of spending 4 years prior, claiming up and down to anybody who would listen that she won the governor's race against Brian Kemp. It's the concession this time, and we saw a lot of these coming back throughout this last election cycle, where they conceded, and they made a big deal about the fact that they conceded because, evil Donald Trump didn't concede, in spite of the fact that he did on January 7th, but they forget to tell you that part. He refused to concede, and Kari Lake is refusing to concede, and we are the good, great. They're gaslighting you, and they're gaslighting you with this too. In any other political time, call to activism's tweet would be, just in, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has been hospitalized after falling after an event. Retweet if you'd like to see him be forced to resign for being in the hospital or something like that. And there were a few honest people in the comments too that said, oh, well, he did everything he could to block Obama, so of course I don't wish him well. I hope he dies in the hospital. There's one right there. This is like rooting for a tumor. And another one here. I'm firmly on the side of gravity with this one. In any other situation, called activism will be doing this. But Jersey, my wife's son Reliant, put it best when he said, he pointed out the grip when he said, oh, look at us. Hey, we're putting our politics aside and wishing Mitch McConnell a full and speedy recovery. Unlike the evil Republicans who, when Mr. Pelosi got attacked by someone with a hammer, they made up wild conspiracy theories about him. That's the grift. That is the grift. Let's grab one from ABC, talking about the possible recovery from here. From ABC, Republican senators optimistic Mitch McConnell is going to be fine after the concussion. Realistically, he is probably going to be fine. This is routine, number one, and number two, he is in the hands of some of the best medical professionals in the world, with unlimited funds to go back and treat him and make sure that he goes back and comes back alive and gets all the best CIA drugs and everything else. It is very, very unlikely that anything bad is going to happen to this turtle gullet moron. There is optimism in the Republican conference about the health of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, after lawmakers were briefed on McConnell's condition by his longtime aide and current Chief of Staff Sharon Soderstrom during a closed-door lunch on Thursday. Oh, we've got turtles in the chat. Look at that. He wasn't able to retract his head into his turtle shell fast enough. What really happened is he's stuck on his back somewhere. No one wants to flip him over. Let's see. Soderstrom told members that her boss is alert, talking, and expected to make a full recovery from a fall and concussion he suffered while attending a dinner at the Washington Hotel on Wednesday night. Wish him well. He's a tough old crow. He's a tough old turtle is what he is, and my money's on Mitch. Oh, that's Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham. John Barrasso, the number 3 Republican in the chamber, and a doctor confirmed that McConnell, who's 81, has been up and speaking. He's going to be observed, which is a concussion protocol, Barrasso said. I expect him to make a full recovery and be back here next week. So, it looks like he's going to make it after all. And again, I wish him well. I have very choice words for Mitch McConnell, and I want to see him taken out of the Senate, but not that way. When I see him taken out of the Senate, I want it to be by vote or by arrest, not by a fall and a cracked skull. I say the same thing about Mr. Fetterman. I don't want to see him die. I don't want to see him off himself. I want to see him live a long and healthy life, but rejected by the voters who put him into office. And another breaking one. Russian missile barrage slams into Ukrainian cities, 6 dead. Is it a Russian missile barrage or is it a Ukrainian missile barrage? The world may never know. A barrage of more than 80 Russian missiles and smaller number of exploding drones hit residential buildings and critical infrastructure across Ukraine on Thursday, killing 6 and leaving hundreds of thousands without heat or electricity. The largest such attack in 3 weeks also put Europe's largest nuclear plant at risk by knocking it off the power grid for nearly half the day before it was reconnected, because nuclear reactors need constant power to run cooling systems and avoid a meltdown. The latest power loss at Zaporizhzhia again raised the specter of a nuclear catastrophe. Air raid sirens wailed through the night as the attacks targeted a wide swath of the country, including western Ukraine, which is far from the front lines. This, by the way, is why I don't buy that. Zelensky said the assault that came while many people slept was another attempt by the terrorist state to wage war against civilization. The Russian Defense Ministry said the strikes were in retaliation for a recent incursion into the Bryansk region of western Russia by what Moscow claimed were Ukrainian saboteurs. Ukraine denied the claim and warned that Moscow could use the allegations to justify stepping up its own assaults. I don't buy it. I don't. The Kremlin's forces started targeting Ukraine's power supply last October in an apparent attempt to demoralize the civilian population and compel Kiev to negotiate peace on Moscow's terms. Or the Zaporizhzhia plant is in the region that Russia is trying to liberate. One of the two. The attacks later became less frequent, and analysts speculated Russia may have been running low on ammunition. The last major bombardment was February 16th. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog agency said Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia lost all external power for 11 hours after its last remaining power line was disconnected following reports of the missile strike. Rafael Grossi of the International Atomic Energy Agency emphasized that the incident again demonstrated how fragile and dangerous the situation is for the plant. Overall, Russia allegedly launched 81 missiles and 8 exploding Iranian-made Shahed drones. According to Ukraine's chief commander of the armed forces, Valery Zaluzhny, 34 missiles were intercepted, as were 4 drones, he said. The mixture of munitions makes it harder for air defense to cope with the onslaught, military analysts said. What do you want to bet the next thing that we hear out of Kiev is, please, we must have jets now, because otherwise they launch air surface to air to ground missile. We must have jets. Send us jets now, please. And honestly, if we were to buy this at face value, I can't see any reason why the warmongering uniparty wouldn't deny it, but that is where we are at with that. Breaking news. There's going to be analysis to this. Again, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Especially when it became a part of Western Ukraine. Let's get the old Ukrainian map back up here. The reason that I look at this and I say that I don't buy it is strategy. And they're talking about bringing it out to here. Next to NATO member, NATO member, NATO member, NATO member, NATO member. And we've already had the one missile that got blown off course that wound up being a Ukrainian missile that landed just inside this border here. And there has yet to be any interest by Russia to go beyond this line right here. They did some shelling in Kiev to possibly try to slow down some of the onslaught coming back out of Kiev, but other than that, this line from Kharkiv down to Kherson seems to be the line that they're stopping at. So why? Why would you risk, if you're Russia, other than to make a show of force against the U.S. That would be the only thing that I could see. Landing something that could land here, or here, or here. Again, NATO member, NATO member, NATO member, NATO member, NATO member. You see where this might be a bad idea? Because I can see it. But that is the official narrative that we're getting, so that is, of course, what we have to believe, because the news people say that that's what we have to believe. So this is a situation we will continue to watch, and if we get down to the bottom of the stack, I do have some other news on the Russian front. But without further ado, we are going to look at the second Tucker release. I don't know if I'm going to go through the whole 8 minutes. I am going to cut the Instagram feed because, again, all you're going to see on the Instagram side is for 8 minutes, and we don't need to see that. Those of you who are watching over on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, etc., you can see what's up above me, up in the other corner. So we're going to listen to, I think, most of this. But this, like, what we saw on Monday was presentation of a first volley of evidence that Tucker drummed up to put reasonable doubt into people's minds. This is a direct shot across the bow. If Tucker wants to wage a media war against the leftoids, this is it. So we'll listen to this and we'll say goodbye to Instagram for now. Usually we'll go longer for that, but we'll say goodbye to Instagram for now. So if you are watching on Instagram on the replay, hit the link in the description. You can find this episode with the same title number in the YouTube channel and come back and join us for that. Oh, look, we got done talking about Russia. Now the Tetris song plays. All right, let's listen to Tucker. I can't believe I just said those words.
One of the hallmarks of people who are telling the truth, in case you were wondering how to tell the difference, is that people who are telling the truth are calm. They don't wave their hands around and make wild accusations. They don't need to do that. It's enough to say what they know. And if honest people turn out to be wrong about something they have claimed, they'll admit it. They don't double down on false. They made a mistake, and that's okay. It's not like they're claiming to be God. Liars behave differently. Liars are touchy, sometimes to the point of hysteria. They're hiding something. That's the whole point of lying. And they're worried you're going to find out what it is. Liars are fragile because over time, lying makes you weak and afraid. It has the same effect on countries, by the way. We're living through one of those clarifying moments, which actually we're thankful for, where we're learning exactly who the liars are. On Monday, we showed you unreleased videotape from January 6th. That tape proved that 3 of the most important claims our leaders have made about that day were untrue. Their claims were lies. We were not shocked to discover that. We knew there was a reason that congressional leaders had been hiding the tape and that reporters in Washington weren't demanding to see it. They were lying to us, obviously. That's why you hide things. But what was actually surprising, what we can't quite get over even now, is how they responded when they were caught lying. They didn't seem embarrassed. They didn't apologize. They weren't even curious to learn more about what actually happened on January 6th. Let's see the tape. No, they didn't want to see it. They exploded in rage. And then, as liars tend to do, they doubled down. They told the same lies they've been caught telling, but with even greater aggression this time. "Shut up, it's midnight," they said as the sun rose behind them. Who acts like that? Well, sociopaths do. And in this case, the sociopaths turned out to be both Democrats and Republicans. The commitment to lying in Washington is far deeper and more bipartisan even than we realize when we follow this stuff for a living. Now, you sometimes hear people say that the whole partisan system is an illusion and that underneath the manufactured debates, the leaders on both sides are in fact secretly united in a common love of money and power and the deception required to get them. And honestly, we could never really bring ourselves to believe that. It's just too dark. But now we do believe it because we have seen it. Consider the death of police officer Brian Sicknick. Now, we still don't know exactly how Officer Sicknick died. We're not certain that anyone does know. No one has explained it. But after reviewing the previously withheld video evidence, we can tell you with certainty that Officer Sicknick was not beaten to death by Trump voters at the Capitol. The tape shows very clearly Brian Sicknick walking through the building in apparent health after the media told us for 2 years that he had been murdered. So they were wrong about that. Okay, they got caught. Here's the interesting thing. They won't admit it. Liz Cheney's tweet is still on Twitter tonight. Officer Sicknick was killed defending our Capitol from the violent mob on January 6th. No correction. Anderson Cooper of CNN still has not apologized. Quote, Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight, he told us. Those are lies. So why not just admit it and move on? But they won't. In fact, this week, the White House trotted out both the press secretary and Joe Biden's attorney general, the attorney general of the United States, to claim not just that Brian Sicknick was actually murdered by Republicans at the Capitol, but that other officers were murdered too. It's almost beyond belief. Watch this.
The rage of bipartisan lawmakers, you heard them all yesterday, you guys reported on it, who have condemned this false depiction of the unprecedented violent attack on our Constitution and the rule of law, which cost police officers their lives.
It was a violent attack on a fundamental tenet of American democracy, that power is peacefully transferred from one administration to another. Over 100 officers were assaulted on that day. 5 officers died.
5 officers died on that day. Now, that's just not some guy on Twitter. That's the Attorney General of the United States. That's a man whose honesty is central to his job. If you had a choice between IQ and integrity in an Attorney General, of course you would go with integrity because it's essential. But Joe Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, is a liar. He just lied about something that is provably false. Who are these 5 officers who were, quote, killed that day? Notice he didn't tell you. No one ever tells you. No one ever shows you their autopsies. They don't want any detail. They just want the slogan. Now, they're counting Brian Sicknick. That's a lie. But who are the other 4? Well, those are 4 officers who killed themselves after January 6th, in some cases long after January 6th.
And of course, we're making the assumption that it was an actual suicide, not an arkancide. Which I do believe at least one of them was an arkancide.
But their suicides, we know for a fact, were the result of the Republican mob at the Capitol. It's just false. And it's not some esoteric fact. That fact is available to anyone who has internet access. No police officers died that day on January 6th. None. Not one. Some were assaulted, that is true, and their assaults are indefensible. So how many were assaulted? Well, Garland said over 100.
All right. So I can't listen to Tucker anymore. I'm sorry. But what I can say with this, and even just getting 5.5 minutes into this, is this, again, the first video that we saw when we watched the full 10 minutes, and there was a reason that I stayed with the full 10 minutes on that no matter what, no matter how much I couldn't stand Tucker's voice, is because that's the reasonable doubt, and presented as an objective reasonable doubt, not a, these people tried to end the democracy. They tried to end the republic as we know it. This is, hey, have a look at these people wandering through, milling through, and this is what people are trying to tell you was the violent insurrection. Tourists lost walking through that was reasonable doubt. This is a shot across the bow. Again, when I see something like this, number one, Tucker is an entertainment journalist, but so am I. When I look at something like this, though, when I listen to something like this, the first things that comes into my mind is he's going to present something other, because I know that he's planning on making another presentation this weekend. And he's got something else cooking that will back up the fact that this was outright a lie, in spite of the fact that most of us, with 2 brain cells to rub together, already know that what was concocted about this story was a lie. When you make the allegation, you have to come back with your evidence. It's something I try to impress on Twitter all the time, with people who think that they can just make the allegation and then tell you to go and Google it. So I'm curious to see what it is that Tucker brings forward. This is the most interested I've been in something that Tucker Carlson has to say since Tucker Carlson Tonight premiered. But I want to see what the goods are. But coming out of the other side, Kinzinger, Grant's favorite politician, and Schiff, Ron Helton's second favorite politician, talking to Anderson Cooper about the power of repetition, which both of these men, by the way, all three of these men, I should say, are guilty of. Let's listen.
Yet, the power of repetition is such that, people like Tucker Carlson, who know they're lying to the public, can convince tens of millions of people of those lies. I tell you, it's been really illuminating to me about other periods of history where you had other liars use a powerful megaphone and convince millions that they can't believe what they've seen. And you wonder, how is that possible? And now we see how that's possible. When you have people who have no love of country, no patriotic fiber, when it's just all about the money, then this is what happens. And for Tucker Carlson...
Pot kettle, Adam Schiff. Holy crap, pot kettle, Adam Schiff. I want to expound on something that Grant just said in the chat. We all knew because there was footage from people on the ground. We actually watched additional footage, so we know. Most people, a lot of the people who are buying what Anderson Cooper has to say, a lot of people who are buying what Adam Schiff has to say, a lot of people who are suckling up everything that Adam Kinzinger has to say. Those people watched this on CNN, which was edited for television. They watched it on Fox, which was edited for television. They watched it on MSDNC, which was edited to make leftoids angry. What did we watch? People like you who are watching this program, who are looking past the mainstream news, even though, again, my biggest source is the mainstream news. But what did we watch? Stephen Ignoramus and his live stream while it was happening. And even though we can't go back and bring it up for proof anymore because that was destroyed from the internet and taken away for posterity to make sure that the narrative didn't get interrupted. The Red Elephants, because I'm sure they had a camera out there. Benza James was right up at the front, one of the people who was trying to bust in. And a host of other on-the-grounders who were doing this live, not from the CNN camera, and not from the CNN editors who were finding live streams that were finding the worst shots possible to put up on the screen. We watched from people who were actually there with a full stream going constantly over and over again, as mostly people stood in the rotunda and wondered, what the hell do I do? That's what we watched. We didn't watch what these people wanted us to see. We watched it actually happening. And while we can't, again, one of the hardest parts is that all of this video was deleted by the various webmasters out there. Although I think, I'm sure DLive and BitChute probably have some of it yet. While the majority of this on the mainline platforms that our compatriots who are against us would call an acceptable video sharing service. We can't show them a BitChute video and not have them say, "Oh, opinion dismissed because you use a Nazi site," or a Rumble video or something like that. But we watched it happen. So these people can't lie to us. They can lie to the people who were ready to accept their lies beforehand, but they can't lie to us. Alright, what else do we have here? From CNN, House GOP plots new January 6th probe despite internal backlash over McCarthy giving Carlson footage. From Annie Grayer, Melanie Zanona, and Manu Raju. Speaker McCarthy often spent the last 2 years avoiding much discussion about the January 6th selfie fest. Now he's effectively put the issue back in the spotlight and on the investigative agenda, a gambit that has divided House and Senate Republicans and reopened ugly wounds inside the GOP. Republicans in the House are beginning to plot multiple probes into the 2021 Capitol Selfie Fest, including looking into the Democrat-led unselect committee's actions from the last Congress and the security failures from that day, and potentially even the treatment of the January 6 defendants. Multiple sources familiar with the work told CNN. The move comes as McCarthy greenlit the release of the January 6 security footage to Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who sought to whitewash. Oh my God, the editorialization. Jeez. I always think that this is actually coming out to be somewhat objective, especially with the new ownership over at CNN, and then they do that shit. I think they need to watch a little less cable TV, said John Cornyn of Texas, a member of the Senate GOP leadership, said of his Republican counterparts in the House. John Cornyn is also a swamp creature. He's a very base swamp creature, but he is a swamp creature, nonetheless. He is one of the more based members of the old guard. While Mitch McConnell called it a mistake for Fox News to use the footage to downplay January 6th, McCarthy defended the move and joined many in his conference to shift the focus onto the Select Committee after they'd blamed Trump for the attack. Loudermilk and ally of McCarthy's will now lead a new GOP probe into the January 6th, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. As chairman of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, the Georgia Republican is expected to focus on the Select Committee and what he's called security failures leading up to the attack. So, my thing with this is I'm actually interested to see the findings and results of a committee like this. But I don't want to see it in a highly televised primetime special. I want to read a report. Have a report printed out once you find up all the evidence, gather the evidence, and release it out to the American public. We don't need to sit and watch this on primetime with our eyes taped open, like the propaganda report. But we have a probe coming from the Blaze. Tucker Carlson tells Glenn Beck January 6th committee didn't merely distort facts, but fabricated full falsehoods. It blew my mind. And in the interest of time, because we have so much on the stack, I am actually going to skip right ahead to the video of what he had to say to Glenn Beck. Let's listen.
You called the January 6th committee members liars. Side suggestions that, Sitnik was murdered, not even suggestions, but claiming that. Do you make the case that they're liars? They didn't just, fib a bit and eat around the corners. That these are full-fledged liars.
Well, that was the stunning part to me. I've been in Washington my whole life, and my dad worked for the government, so I had a kind of root-level trust in government, or not trust in government, but the whole thing can't be fraudulent because I know the people who work there. My dad was one of them. This is, I'm very much from that world. I guess that's what I'm saying. So my default setting is not they're lying about everything. I've never assumed that. And so I was shocked to learn that they were lying intentionally. And the way that we know that, we have a very specific way of knowing that, which is when January 6th committee researchers looked at video, they bookmarked it. They left an electronic mark on the video they watched. So we know what they watched. And then we watched it. And so there is video of Chansley, of Ray Epps, and of Brian Sicknick that we know they watched that was not included in the report, was never mentioned in the hearings, a year and a half, 1,000 witnesses, 850-page report. And this video, which overturns the story they were telling, proves it was a lie, they saw but hid. So, I'm always hesitant to go to motive because who understands people's motives? You can only really guess about them. But in this specific case, we know that they lied. And that just blew my mind. I mean, some of these guys, if Adam Schiff lies, I think Adam Schiff, there are spiritual forces surrounding Adam Schiff. I think he is a force of darkness, and I mean that. But is Benny Thompson evil? I have trouble believing, I've known Liz Cheney for 25 years. Is Liz Cheney actually a liar? I just always assume she just disagrees on the issues with me. No, it turns out Liz Cheney is actually affirmatively a liar. She knew information, she withheld it because it challenged the lie that she was telling to the public. And that just completely, call me naive. I guess I'm sure everyone listening is how stupid are you? Well, I guess kind of stupid because I was blown away by that.
So the electronic bookmarks thing, that's an interesting side that he hasn't brought up before. And I mean, I can see where too, and we can actually see what it is that the select committee watched, and I'm sure that they saw it. Now, there are claims out there right now that I've not been able to verify that they mostly had their staffers come out and watch everything. I didn't put that on the stack because I didn't have green check verification for that. But if true, then they've been brought forward directly to the things like Jacob Chansley being led around and the almost empty chambers and Ray Epps for what he's worth. And this may be something coming into what we see coming in future releases. There is, again, supposed to be more to come off of this. And I've got two more here, and then we will go into government officials behaving badly. And I've got a ton of that. How much government officials behaving badly do I have? All the way down to this CNN article. And then I've got a couple instances of government officials behaving properly, if you can believe that. All right, from CNN, White House calls Tucker Carlson shameful and extraordinary rebuke. From David Goldman, the White House lashed out at Fox News host Tucker Carlson Wednesday in an extraordinary rebuke of the late-night commentator who has been airing false depictions of the January 6th attack this week, because we have to editorialize absolutely every single thing that we put onto print. You guys thought that this was going to change under new ownership. Surprise! Did you watch the Twitter file hearings news guards connected to the government? I understand that, but I also structure my show so that when my detractors come out and say, all you're doing is you're reading right-wing blogs. Like, no, I'm reading CNN and Politico and ABC, and, well, you guys think that New York Post is a right-wing blog, but I'm reading the same journalistic sources that you are. Carlson has given access to about 40,000 hours of U.S. Capitol security camera footage by Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Has aired carefully selected clips to, oh my god. Okay, this entire paragraph is fabricated. Jesus, the editorialization of this. That's the worst part of it. Alright, did we read this already? Okay, no, now we've got more coming here. During her daily news conference with reporters on Wednesday, White House Press Secretary token diversity hire called January 6, 2021 a very dark day and attack on our democracy. And I think that's the video that we can watch up here too. Oops. To have what he said when we saw the Capitol police officers lose their lives, or police officers lose their lives, is just it's shameful. Yeah, pigs in a blanket fry them like bacon. Let's listen. Minute 14. We can get through that one.
We agree with the chief of Capitol Police and the rage of bipartisan lawmakers. You heard them all yesterday.
God, she is terrible at
who
this.
have condemned this false depiction of the unprecedented violent attack on our Constitution and the rule of law, which cost police officers their lives. And that's what we saw on that day, on a very dark day, an attack on our democracy. And so we also, as it relates to the Tucker Carlson question, we agree with Fox Nation's own attorneys and executives who have repeatedly stressed in multiple courts of law that Tucker Carlson is not credible when it comes to this issue in particular. And we have, NPR back in September of 2020, They had the following: you literally can't believe the facts Tucker Carlson tells you. So say Fox's lawyers. Again, in Washington Post, most recently, just a day ago, Fox executive Hannity Carlson shows are not credible sources of news. And so to have said what he said when we saw Capitol police officers lose their lives, or police officers lose their lives, is just shameful.
Let's be realistic about this, shall we? You are coming out there, and I mean, that is Token Diversity Hire's job, is to be a propaganda arm of the White House. That was what McKennedy's job was. That was what Huckabee Sanders' job was. That is the job of the press secretary, to spin the propaganda, to spin the news in the favor of the White House. But I mean, coming out here and saying, and outright lying, we saw the police officers get killed. No, you didn't. Unless you were watching when they got Clinton cited the next day or the next few days. And we go by Fox's own attorneys when they say Tucker Carlson isn't credible. Well, no journalist is credible. Anything that you see released by somebody like this, you should be going out and verifying yourself. But he is coming with the receipts this time. I don't think he's credible either. But he's presenting things that your people didn't. All right, and the last one we have on this topic comes to us from Politico. House GOP faces new January 6th headache, courtesy of Tucker Carlson. And this is going to be more propaganda. I didn't pre-read this, and I already know that, just reading the headline from Sarah Ferris, Olivia Beavers, and Kyle Cheney. House Republicans arrived in the Capitol on Tuesday facing a torrent of questions about the January 6th selfie fest. This time, it was a headache of their own making. Speaker McCarthy's decision to release thousands of hours of security footage from that day to Fox News has reopened a painful fault line that his party has repeatedly tried to mend 2 years after the violent assault on the Capitol by Trump supporters, evil Orange Man supporters, with most of its members no longer openly parroting the former president's, oh my god, the editorialization. Inside McCarthy's conference, a few if any members would say outright on Tuesday that their speaker made a mistake by sharing footage with Carlson. In fact, only a handful admitted to watching the segment at all. One of those is McCarthy himself, who defended the move in the name of transparency when pressed by reporters on Tuesday. But some Republicans aired their displeasure with being forced to revisit the attack in their workplace. It's definitely stupid to keep talking about this, so what is the purpose of continuing to bring it up unless you're trying to feed Democrat narratives even further? One-Eyed McCain said in an interview, noting the videos didn't show anything that we don't already know. Right, but they're showing things that the American people haven't seen. Of course, you know it all. Dan Crenshaw, you were there. I don't really have a problem with making it all public, but your message is then try to convince people that nothing bad happened. That's just going to make us look silly. No, and I don't believe for a second that the message is to try to make it look like nothing happened. And neither does Dan Crenshaw, by the way. Just so you know, Dan Crenshaw does not believe what he just said. He knows he's lying. Full on, he knows that he's telling a lie. So, what is he doing with this then? The point of this is to cast reasonable doubt to the fact that this was a planned, plotted, orchestrated attack, and everybody who was going into that building was a loyal minion of Donald Trump who knew the objective right from the beginning. And instead, that it was a large amount of people who went out to make their voices heard, many of whom got waved into the Capitol by police officers in what's, frankly, I believe, entrapment. To then turn around and mill about the Capitol wondering, what the hell do I do next? And by the way, people like Dan Crenshaw are the reason I don't belong to any political party. All right, that's all that I have on the Tucker stuff. Let's talk about government officials behaving badly, and we are going to start with the one right at the tippy top from CBS News. National Archives says it retrieved 9 boxes of Biden records from ex-personal attorney's Boston office. Yay! We're going to do documents again. From Melissa Quinn and Arden Farhi. Yeah, Grant is right. What police? Who died? Name them. Brian Sicknick! The National Archives and Records Admin retrieved 9 boxes from a Boston law office belonging to President Biden's former personal attorney in early November. The number of boxes was previously unknown. The boxes have been transported from a D.C. think tank to lawyer Pat Moore's firm, the archives revealed in a letter to senators. The archives say it does not review the material. Documents from Mr. Biden's time as vice president are required to be turned over to the archives. Deborah Steedle-Wall, acting archivist of the U.S., revealed that the archives was informed that Mr. Biden's personal attorney began the review of materials stored at the Penn Biden Center in October, which is earlier than previously known. Archive staff picked up the 9 boxes of Mr. Biden's vice presidential records from Moore's office on November 9th at the request of the Justice Department, Wall said. Wall's letter was in response to a February 24th request of information from GOP Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley about the archive's knowledge of documents from Mr. Biden's time as vice president that were moved from the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement in Washington to Moore's law office. Wall told the Republican senators that the archives first learned that Mr. Biden's records were transported to Boston on November 3rd, one day after the president's personal attorney notified the agency that roughly 10 documents marked classified were discovered in Mr. Biden's former office at the Penn Biden Center. In response to a question about how many records were moved from the think tank to Moore's law firm, Wall wrote that NARA staff retrieved 9 boxes from Mr. Moore's Boston office. Now, this one flew under the radar a little bit, but this does look just a bit shady, especially given the clearance levels that are required to handle classified documents. My first question, as always, is did the attorney involved have security clearance? Theoretically, the answer is yes to that. And that's one thing that I can say with a lot of certainty is theoretically, yes, he did have security clearance to do so because he would have to be a sitting vice president and sitting president's personal attorney. Moore was part of Biden's legal team, handling the documents from his tenure as vice president that were at the Penn Biden Center and his residence in Wilmington, 2 sources told CBS News in January. But Moore began working for the Mass Attorney General's office in mid-January and is no longer representing the president. Molly Levinson, a spokeswoman for Bob Bauer, Mr. Biden's longtime attorney, told CBS News. Now, my first question is, and we won't know this until after NARA goes through this, but how many places are these documents? Seriously. Because we keep hearing this over and over again. And they're completely secure, don't worry. Well, I mean, where were they in the law office? What's in the documents? That, again, is going to be the hardest part because no jury is going to be able to see the documents, see the evidence. As much as people keep coming back out and saying, oh, well, they had ways they could go back and prosecute Reality Winner and Chelsea Manning and everything else. Well, those documents were released to the public in those cases. If there was just something that Chelsea Manning had taken, put in her pocket, and gone home, and never released to the public, there's no way that would be able to be put out to a jury as evidence. But, once they're released, it's a different story. And again, my question always is what are they trying to distract from when they keep showing this kind of stuff? Let's talk about the budget. From ABC News, Biden rolls out 2024 budget amid debt ceiling showdown. From Sarah Kolinovsky, Elizabeth Schulze, and Alexandra Hutzler. President Biden on Thursday rolled out his proposed budget for fiscal year 2024, casting it as a reflection of his values, ahead of an anticipated re-election run and aiming to put Republicans on the defensive. Yeah, good luck with that. The White House says the budget would reduce the deficit in the long term by $3 trillion, largely due to tax increases on wealthy Americans and corporations. It would also provide a record amount for defense spending and include funds for Biden's pledges on paid family leave, universal pre-K, and more. Well, see, a big part of the problem is if you start cutting some of the defense spending and lift some of the gun laws so that we can defend ourselves, that's a big savings in and of itself. But you can't tax your way out of this. We've come to the point economically in this situation that you can't tax your way out of this. And another question is the White House says the budget would reduce the deficit in the long term by $3 trillion. Why do we have a deficit of $3 trillion in the first place? And by the way, but with the fact that they're saying to reduce the deficit, that means it's more. I don't even have to go look up statistics to know that it's more than $3 trillion. Why do we have such a deficit? Explain it to me, Lucy. Explain it to me like I'm 5. I value everyone having an even shot. Not just labor, but small business owners and farmers and so many other people who hold the country together, who've been basically invisible for a long time, man. Biden's trip to Philly, the site of his 2020 campaign headquarters, and his rousing Nazistic speech is part of a wider push to connect with voters. He emphasized giving families breathing room and told personal anecdotes about Americans worrying about medical bills, child care, and educational opportunities. 3 things, by the way, that man has had to think about since 1971. My budget, it reflects what we can do to lift the burden on hardworking Americans. Biden's budget release comes as larger spending fight looms on Capitol Hill, with lawmakers facing a summer deadline to lift the debt ceiling or risk an unprecedented default. His proposal is all but dead on arrival, as congressional Republicans are generally opposed to any tax increases. House Republicans have insisted on significant spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt ceiling to avoid an economically disastrous default, though they're yet to reveal what they want in and out of the budget. Democrats have called for a clean increase to the debt ceiling, not tied to any federal spending, because they know that it's going to be, oh yeah, no, just raise the debt ceiling and cross your fingers behind your back. Oh, we'll totally reduce spending once you raise the debt ceiling. So, from the Daily Wire, more taxes and more spending. Here's what you need to know about President Biden's newest budget. From Ben Ziesloft. President Brandon unveiled record spending and several new tax increases on Thursday in his budget proposal for fiscal year 2024. I know Ron is probably sitting over there seething at this one right now. They suggested $6.9 trillion for federal government's operations between October 1st, 2023 and September 30th, 2024 would mark a $1.1 trillion increase from the $5.8 trillion proposed by the Commander-in-Chief for the previous fiscal year. House Republicans are expected to reject the proposal and counter it with a budget of their own. This year's budget cuts the deficit by nearly $3 trillion over the next decade by asking the wealthy and big corporations to begin to pay their fair share, Office of Management and Budget Director Shalonda Young said in a statement. Okay, what is their fair share? Give me a number. I've never ever had a number of what the fair share is. It does this in part by reforming our tax code to reward work, not wealth, including by ensuring that no billionaire pays a lower tax rate than a teacher, firefighter, and by quadrupling the tax on corporate stock buybacks. The budget proposal is indeed marked by a number of tax hikes on affluent households, including a 25% minimum tax on those with more than $100 million in wealth, and a budget that the budget calls a billionaire minimum tax. The top marginal tax rate would also be increased to 39.6% from the current 37%, which would represent a return to levels seen before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the hallmark legislative accomplishment of former President Trump. And again, I'm going to remind you that all they're going to do is cut their income to below the level so nobody pays the top tax rate. And they know they can get away with it too, because the mindless people who support these people have no idea what wealth works is. These people think that when we say a billionaire, it's Scrooge McDuck with a giant money bin with $1 billion worth of coins in it. You know, cash that decreases in value because of inflation. The budget would also increase the investment income tax used to fund Medicare from 3.8% to 5% for individuals earning more than $400,000 a year, a move the White House claims would extend the solvency of the Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund for at least 25 years. Want to bet? Joe Skellington, I like that. Thank you, Mr. Scott. The tax code currently offers special treatment for the types of income that wealthy people enjoy. It's not income, it's capital assets. Whereas the wages and salaries that everyday Americans earn are taxed as ordinary income. Billionaires make their money in ways that are taxed at lower rates, and sometimes not taxed at all. That's not true. That I can tell you right off the bat is not true. This special treatment, combined with sophisticated tax planning and giant loopholes that you people put into place, allows many of the wealthiest Americans to pay lower rates on their full income than many middle-class households pay. Businesses would likewise see a number of tax hikes, including an increase in corporate tax to 28%, which would split the difference between the current 21% rate and the previous 35% rate that was in effect before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So, by the way, that means that there are going to be jobs going away. The budget would also quadruple the stock buyback tax from 1% to 4%, such that companies invest unused profits in operations, which they should be anyway. I don't agree with using the government to enforce that, but they should be investing unused profits in operations, not buybacks. I'm on board with the idea of not doing stock buybacks, but I don't like I'm not on board with the way they enforce it. A number of federal agencies would see a large budget increase relative to enacted levels in the previous fiscal year. Allocations for the Labor Department would rise by 11%. Allocations for the Education Department would rise by 13.6%. And allocations for the Environmental Protection Agency would rise by 19%. Budgets for the Defense Department and the Department of Veterans Affairs would meanwhile increase 3.2% and 2.2% respectively. The budget proposal would decrease the total deficit over the next decade from $20 trillion to $17 trillion. Why in God's name is it $20 trillion? Holy crap. That is unacceptable. Reforms to taxes on wealthy households and stock buyback penalties would increase revenues by $1.1 trillion over the next decade, while the hike on the corporate tax would increase revenues by $1.3 trillion. Childcare, early learning, housing, higher education, and other social initiatives would meanwhile introduce $1.1 trillion in new spending. All the paid leave programs and tax benefits for certain families would reduce revenues by $1 trillion. Why do we have a $20 trillion deficit? That is what we need fixed. That is the problem. That is the big problem with our government. and why we're having this debt ceiling fight right now. But the good news, and again, I'll pick on Grant a little bit here because he was pointing out the fact that he didn't trust McCarthy coming in, and neither do I. I still don't trust him, even though he's doing right. Dead on arrival, Republicans slam Biden budgets, higher taxes and spending. From Ben Z's left. Good. Kill it with fire. Republican lawmakers denounced their fiscal year 2024 budget proposal released by President Biden on Thursday. They suggested $6.9 trillion for the federal government's operations would constitute a $1.1 trillion increase. Yeah. Well, we know that already. Senior Republican officials announced that they would oppose the plan, which hinges on expanding social programs and higher taxes. President Biden just delivered his budget to Congress, and it's completely unserious. He proposes trillions in new taxes that you and your family will pay directly through higher costs. House Speaker McCarthy remarked on social media, Washington has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. Yeah, they don't have a revenue problem because they get it from you. Good. Kill it. Kill it with fire and don't ever let it see the light of day again. And as long as we're talking about more spending, Biden officially proposes an average 5.2% pay increase for federal workers and the military in 2024. From Government Executive. President Biden officially proposed a 5.2% average pay raise for both civilian federal employees and military service members next year as part of his fiscal 2024 budget plan released Thursday. This is the poison pill, by the way. This is the poison pill because do you know, and the Daily Wire and ABC did a very good job of making sure that this wasn't on the forefront. For people to be able to formulate their ability to react to this. They did a good job of going along with the propagandistic line. But when it gets bombed, when it gets carpet bombed and dies and doesn't see the light of day, what is every headline going to say? Republicans hate the military. They hate the Army. They hate service members. They denied a 5.2% average pay raise for both civilian federal employees and military service members. Are you going to let these military haters take office? That is exactly what the headline is going to be. 100%. Meanwhile, I think that, yes, we should deny them the pay raise. If they want a pay raise, go to the private sector. All right, more government officials behaving badly. From WGN, a 14-count indictment against 2 former Cook County Assistant State Attorneys unsealed. From Chip Brewster and Christine Flores. 2 former Cook County prosecutors face a combined 14-count indictment following a 1.5-year investigation by a special prosecutor. Lawrence Oliver II was appointed to the position in July of 2021 after a county prosecutor admitted to having a relationship with a key witness in a case. The now former Assistant State's Attorney, Nick Trutenko, faces charges including perjury, obstruction, violation of the Local Records Act, and official misconduct, while another former Assistant Attorney, Andrew Horvath, faces charges of official misconduct. Alfred Maldonado, the judge who ordered the special prosecutor, originally said in 2021 that there's sufficient evidence that Trutenko committed perjury and others in the state's attorney's office may have covered for him. Let me correct the record for you, WGN did cover for him. But I understand why you have to word it that way, because innocent until proven guilty. This all stems from the Trutenko allegedly lying about his relationship with a key witness against Jackie Wilson, who was on trial for the 1982 murder of 2 Chicago police officers. It was amid a 2020 trial that Trutenko revealed his long-standing relationship with William Coleman, a key witness against Wilson. At the time, Horvath was assigned to represent Trutenko, who was serving as a witness. Horvath allegedly warned a special prosecutor not to ask Trutenko about his relationship with Coleman. There are two travesties here. You have Jackie Wilson, who was tried 3 times in 83, 89, and 20. He never received a fair trial in any of those trials, Oliver said. Equally tragic is that taxpayers of Cook County never received a fair and clean prosecution of the Wilson brothers. So, kind of sounds like they may have known something that they weren't supposed to know, or said something that they weren't supposed to say, and now they're not in the good graces of the government anymore. From Julie Kelly, tweeting out about the Proud Boys trial. Julie Kelly says breaking drama in the Proud Boys trial yesterday after FBI agent caught lying on the stand and concealing evidence from defense attorneys. Motion filed this morning from Nick Smith, an attorney representing Ethan Nordine. This is what happens when a rogue, corrupt FBI is allowed to lie to the public, withhold information, and operate without oversight by Congress. This agent or someone deleted thousands of messages in the FBI's link messaging system, messages relevant to the investigation and required to be produced to defense counsel. What message did the FBI conceal from the defense? A request by an FBI informant to alter an official CHS source report. Edit out "I was present." An agent's requested Special Agent Miller to go into a CHS informant report that Miller just put together and edit out that the agent was present, with redactions, of course. Brazen lawlessness at the FBI in its biggest January 6 case. Boss instructs FBI agent to destroy hundreds of items of evidence. If this is a slam dunk case of seditious conspiracy, why is the FBI destroying and hiding evidence? Well, I know the answer to that already. Even more egregious maybe, the FBI accessed emails between one defendant and his attorney and discussed its contents. This agent apparently knew one defendant planned to go to trial. The judge excused the jury as soon as this info was revealed in court yesterday, hearing shortly. Correction, this was a jail conversation. So it looks like the prosecution dropped the ball on this from Politico. Spill of classified information derails Pride Boys trial. I still don't believe the Pride Boys are a legitimate organization. They're not. From Kyle Cheney. Federal prosecutors inadvertently disclosed likely classified material to the Proud Boys' defense attorneys. Justice Department officials indicated Thursday a snafu that has derailed for at least a full day the most important trial to emerge from the Capitol Selfie Fest. The admission in court by a top DOJ official came in connection with testimony from FBI Special Agent Nicole Miller, one of the lead investigators in the Pride Boys case. Miller has already spent 2 days testifying about the Pride Boys' January 6 activities, their march to the Capitol from the Washington Monument, and the key role in the breaches that led to the broader, that thing. The admission in court by a top DOJ official came in connection with testimony from FBI. We read that one already. As part of her testimony, prosecutors shared with defense lawyers a set of internal FBI messages that Miller had sent and received from colleagues related to the case, a standard production of evidence in criminal cases. To compile those exchanges, FBI headquarters sent Miller a spreadsheet of her messages, called from a computer network classified at the secret level. Miller then reviewed the messages and filtered them to ensure only relevant unclassified exchanges were included. Miller then sent her final list to prosecutors, who then packaged the messages into an Excel spreadsheet that they provided for defense lawyers, but unbeknownst to them, the messages that Miller had initially filtered out, including some that DOJ officials say are likely classified, were left in the final document as hidden rows in the Excel spreadsheet. Defense counsel stumbled upon them and began grilling Miller about them in front of the jurors in the case. This is such a spin. Whirlpool would be jealous. Holy crap. Overnight, DOJ attorneys told the defense team that they were concerned that there had been a spill of classified information in the hidden messages they accessed. And on Thursday, U.S. District Court Judge Tim Kelly paused the trial already in its 3rd month to determine how to handle the error. No, they didn't accidentally receive hide classified material. They accidentally confessed to the fact that they were covering up evidence that was pertinent to the trial, just like they did with Jacob Chansley. And now you have to sit back and wonder how much other exculpatory evidence has been hidden from the people who were on trial for January 6th. All right, what else do we have? Here's one that I've been wanting to get to for a while. Liz Warren. Senator Warren weighs in on movement to change Massachusetts state flag over white supremacy culture. From John Michael Rosh. Senator Warren said she supports changing her state's flag after residents demanded it be replaced. Newbury, Massachusetts, locals paused a resolution demands that the city council support an effort to replace the state's flag and seal. The residents argued that the imagery helps promote what they call the state's racist history. It's racist! There are people who are reconsidering the flag en masse, and I support these efforts, Warren told Fox News in a brief exchange on Capitol Hill. Newburyport residents Mariana Vesey and Linda Lou Burciaga have led the movement, according to the town's local paper. The flag and seal both depict a Native American holding a bow and arrow. At the top is an arm holding a sword. She seeks the sword, a quiet place under liberty, is emblazoned in Latin. Vesey said the state seal supports the idea that white people are in charge of this world. Are you kidding me? And that we have to subdue the Native American people through colonization and violent depiction. That's what you're taking away from this? My mind is blown at this. One of the reasons that we can ignore this so easily is that our white supremacy culture has really allowed for the disappearance of the Native American world, she said. We're really trying to say that they are not gone, they are here among us. And we really need to not only recognize that, but honor it. Holy crap. Meanwhile, Burciaga, who called the state flag and seal problematic, criticized the imagery by saying it shows a white hand holding a colonial sword over a Native American's head. So, when I queued this up to talk about, I queued up the image of the flag. And by the way, the skin tone in both the hand and the Native American are the same. Now, I will be the first to say that I don't see this as an appropriate flag because it's got a really, really confusing message. But I would not bring white supremacy into this in any stretch of the imagination. I don't know why there's a Native American on the Massachusetts flag. That is one of the lily whitest states in the country, and I know. I used to live there. And I support, by the way, if the state wants to come back out and change it for reasons of whatever they want to change it. But white supremacy, I can't find the white supremacy. I don't apparently have the secret decoder ring where I can go back through and look in and say, oh yes, there's white supremacy right there. It's hidden behind the arm and the Native American, who are both the same color. Apparently I lost one of my sources because I'm only streaming to 4. What am I missing, by the way? If anybody can tell me. I'm on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. Jump ahead to live. Yeah, I'm over there. Am I on D-Live? Maybe that's why Ron Helton isn't talking. Because I'm not on D-Live anymore. No, I'm on D-Live. Where am I not streaming to? I have no idea. Not important. The 3 main ones I'm on. Yes, Senator Pow Wow Chow, you are correct. And I did grab, in case we needed to do research where this came from, the wiki article of Flag of Massachusetts. I think I'm going to skip over this one. Is that what it was? I thought it was all supposed to be white supremacy. The TikTok ban. From CNN, U.S. senators unveil bipartisan bill empowering Biden to ban TikTok and other services. From Brian Fung. A dozen U.S. senators unveiled the bipartisan legislation Tuesday expanding the president's legal authority to ban TikTok nationwide, marking the latest in a string of congressional proposals threatening the social media platform's future in the U.S. The legislation, calling the Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technologies Act, or the RESTRICT Act, does not target TikTok specifically for a ban, but aims to give the U.S. government new powers, up to and including a ban against foreign-linked producers of electronic software that the Commerce Department deems to be a national security risk. If you dig into and scratch just a little bit below the surface of any major social media platform, you're going to find foreign links. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. This is not, and I do not agree with the use of TikTok. I think TikTok is one of the stupidest ideas on the planet. Which is funny because I'm seeing a girl right now who actually goes live on TikTok. It's been a little bit of a point of contention between the two of us because she uses that platform and I do not. But when I look at this, I don't see Congress looking for a way to get rid of TikTok because they're afraid of spying. What I see more is Congress and the presidency finding a way to eliminate anything that's detracting from them. So this is not going to be, you know who else is foreign linked that a lot of us use? BitChute. BitChute is English. Rumble has foreign ties. I don't know what they all are, but I know that it does have foreign assets. DLive is Turkish. And there's a reason, by the way, that the bill doesn't go into saying, yes, we want to ban TikTok because we think it's a national security threat. Instead saying, against foreign-linked producers of electronics or software that the Commerce Department deems to be a national security risk. Odyssey has foreign assets. You starting to see a pattern here? Yeah, Rumble is Canadian. Okay, Spotify is Swedish. Yeah, but that's not the problematic one. They're not going to ban Spotify because too many of their donors use that one. But the major places that the right wing goes, and I believe Band TV also has a foreign server, although I don't know where it is. On Benjamin's network. Infowars has foreign assets. See, and again, I don't care for TikTok, but I would never stop anybody from using TikTok. If you think that you're going to make yourself a big star on TikTok and it's something that you want to use, or you just want to sit there, and I've got a coworker and he's an old coworker, which surprises me, who when he's on lunch, that's all he does. He just sits there, his phone in his hand the whole time. And I hear the TikTok, and it's algorithmic, and it just jumps the next video to the next video. And he just sits there like that the whole lunch period. As I hear 30-second video after 30-second video just pop off and pop off and pop off. But this is not for TikTok. I mean, it is, because the idea is out there. And now, by the way, the entire TikTok ban thing is starting to make a little bit of sense here. When people start to say, oh, well, it's foreign spyware, it's foreign this. Hey, let's make a bill that lets us go after any foreign spyware. Yeah, and Grant says, I would stop government officials from using TikTok on phones that have access to sensitive information. Absolutely. That's a completely different aspect and story altogether. No, and I said this when we first started talking about the TikTok ban too, is one of the important parts of the TikTok ban has to do with the fact that you shouldn't be using any social media at all unless you're a social media director. You should not be using any social media at all on a government-issued device. Or a work-issued device for that matter. Yes, I know I have 6 outdated drivers. I don't give a fuck. AVG is getting uninstalled. I'll find a different antivirus. I'll talk to my friend Sewell about that. After we get off the air tonight. Where was I going with that? That completely threw me off. Oh, that's right. So, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't have any of your social media. Or games, for that matter. Like, okay, I've got my phone here. The Galaxy S23 Ultra that I just got. And it's fun. And I do play mobile games on it. Not as many anymore. Not as many as I did on my Note 10. But I do play mobile games on it. I like Diggy's Adventure. What can I say? And I do have Stardew Valley on here too. I enjoy it. But now, like, where I work, our outside salesmen get issued a phone, and I think our regular drivers too get issued a cell phone, a company cell phone. And if I got one for what I had to do, if I got a company provided cell phone, which I don't think they do that in my company, but my old company did. My parts manager had a company issue cell phone. I wouldn't put my Snapchat, my Facebook, or anything else. Well, I don't use Facebook anyway. I have it, but I don't use it. I wouldn't put any of that on there. It would all go on my S23 Ultra. So would all the games. That would all go on my S23 Ultra. Number one, it's a much more powerful phone and much more enjoyable to do that kind of thing on. And number two, then I can just turn the phone back over to the company when I decide to part ways with them and say, hey, wipe it as you need to, but there's nothing that I need to get back off of this. Well, I also think young military people using TikTok, especially since we let women in the military. Well, there's that aspect to it. But again, if it's on their personal device, I don't think the government should have any say. If it's a government-issued device, that's a different story. So, but I'm telling you right off the bat, this isn't about TikTok. This is about places that people go when they get banned from Twitter and YouTube and things like that. Oh, Minds, by the way. Minds is Canadian. That's another one. And isn't Gab also English? I think. Those are two other good examples of it. I think the only right-wing social media market that came out that was completely US-based was Parler. What else do we have? We're running up on the clock here. We've got to get over to things I like and things that I hate. A shorter segment than usual. Although I've got a personal anecdote at the end of things that I hate for the day. But we are going to go until at minimum 8:10. Because I started at 6:10 again. From the Daily Wire. Fauci knew. New email show that he prompted paper to shoot down Wuhan lab leak theory of pinko-pox. This is a few days old. But I still wanted to come back and talk about this because this is a government official behaving badly. From Joseph Curl. U.S. Department reportedly concluded that the pinko-pox virus likely leaked from a lab in Wuhan. Even though the agency said it was a low-confidence conclusion, the pronouncement elevated the once conspiracy theory and appeared to vindicate those who had at least questioned the virus's origin. St. Anthony of Fauci the patron saint of medicine, had long sought to sell the idea that the virus emerged naturally. In April of 2020, he cited a study that was found that viruses' mutations are consistent with the jump of the species from animal to human. There was a study recently, Fauci told reporters on April 17, 2020, when asked if it was possible the virus came from a Chinese lab. We're a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequence in bats as they evolve, and the mutations that it took to get to the point where it's now totally consistent with a jump of species from animal to human. Now buy my votive candle. So the paper will be available. I don't have the authors right now, but we can make it available to you. But now, new emails reveal that the House Republicans show a completely different story. The emails show Fauci prompted that very study to disprove the theory that the virus leaked from the lab. In fact, he had final approval of the scientific paper he had commissioned, the New York Post reported. The paper, entitled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, was delivered to Fauci for final approval before it was published in Nature Medicine on February 17, 2020. The paper was written 4 days after Fauci and his NIH boss, Francis Collins, held a call with 4 authors to discuss reports that the pink pox may have leaked from the Wuhan lab and may have been intentionally genetically manipulated, the Post wrote. House Oversight Subcommittee examining the pink pox released emails on Sunday that show the paper's co-author, Dr. Christian Anderson, said Fauci prompted him to write the paper with the specific goal to disprove the lab leak theory. There has been a lot of speculation, fear-mongering, conspiracies put forward in this space, Anderson wrote on February 12, 2020. In a cover letter when submitting the paper to Nature Medicine, he said the paper was prompted by Tony Fauci and Jeremy Farrar. Farrar was then the head of the British nonprofit The Wellcome Trust, which has long ties to the pharmaceutical industry. On the day the paper was published, emails show Farrar pushed for an edit to the piece. Sorry to micromanage, micro-edit, but would you be willing to change one sentence? He wanted to change the word unlikely with improbable, so a sentence would read, it is improbable that the SARS-CoV-2 emerged through laboratory manipulation of an existing SARS-related coronavirus. Well, that's not good. But, the government will cover up what the government can cover up. From The Blaze. Ex-CNN head Jeff Zucker prevented the network from investigating the pinkopox lab leak theory, called it a Trump talking point, CNN insider reportedly reveals. From Dave Urbanski. Jeff Zucker, who, when he was president of CNN, prevented the network from investigating the pinkopox lab leak theory and called it a Trump talking point, Fox News reported, citing a well-placed CNN insider, unnamed source, of course. Now, do I believe this? Yes. Do I present it as definitive fact, given the fact that it's an unnamed source? I do not. So I rate this as believable, but non-evidentiary. People are slowly waking up from the fog, the insider said, according to Fox News. It's kind of crazy that we didn't chase it harder. Zucker, who resigned from CNN in February 2022 after failing to disclose a romantic relationship with another CNN senior executive, wouldn't allow his network to look into the lab leak theory because he believed it was a Trump talking point, Fox News added. Now, and I'm sure that his friends in the Democrat Party also told him not to. Fox News in its report said CNN didn't respond to a request for comment. So, of course they're not going to go push it. It's devastating to the narrative that's making them billions of dollars in ad revenue and rage clicks. So, are we surprised? No. So I'm actually going to move this down to things that I like, and I think we're going to get into that at this point. So let's switch switch a couple things around here, and let's do things that I like and things that I hate and head out of here for the day. So I've got some music, and a couple news stories that I like, and then a couple news stories that I hate with a video, and then I've got a little personal anecdote at the end about when I turned anti-government, because I was still very pro-government when I first moved away from the Democrat Party, but I can tell you, and we were talking about this at work today, that's why I want to share it with you. So we will close out the show with the very day, the very moment I became anti-government. So stick around for that. Let's get into what I like and what I hate. So things that I like today, starting with some music. Not the music that we're listening to now, but some good music that I found. So I've figured out, especially working now customer facing, that I can't keep playing the same kind of music that I used to play all the time when I worked in a non-customer facing role. But I still like to listen to a different kind of music than the people out in the shop do. And sometimes you can hardly hear it. So I've been throwing some various things on Spotify or YouTube. Sometimes I'll do the lo-fi playlist at work. Not the one that we listen to, but another video game lo-fi one that I have I've advertised here before with the one right there in the window, the Radio Cutman one. That is not copyright friendly, so we can't use that on here. A lot of the music is the same, but that particular playlist has more music on it that will ding copyright. I've actually used it before, and it does ding copyright if I use that playlist, and certain songs come on. But I went on to the Donna's radio yesterday, listening to the playlist that they had going on, and I've started discovering songs, sometimes older songs that I had never heard before. And I found this particular one. I was so impressed by this song that actually, while I was gathering up some of the news, I tuned up my guitar a little bit, and I actually want to start playing again. So I've never heard of this band before, or the song. It's Rilo Kiley is, I think, the vocalist or the singer. I don't know if that's the name of the band. The song is called Portions for Foxes, and we're going to listen to a bit of it. Maybe not the whole thing, but we're going to listen to a bit of it now.
Talking trash, but I never say anything. And the talking leads to touching, and the touching leads to sex, and then there is no mystery left. And it's bad news, baby, I'm bad news. I'm just bad news, bad news, bad news.
So, I definitely want to look more into this band. I like what they do here. I like you guys know that I really like guitar-led music to begin with. What did we listen to when we go over music and things that I like? All Time Low, The Donnas, Reliant K, and a lot of other punk, rock, or even metal bands that are very, very guitar-led. And the songs that I choose are really guitar-led songs. So this goes right on into the same kind of pattern that I like. I do want to find more from this band, this singer, and see what it is that the rest of their stuff is like. But man, I want to learn how to play this song. I looked at the chords earlier. It looks pretty easy. But that's what we have there. Other things that I like. I'm going to cut this off for now. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Other things that I like today. Brilliant 15-year-old with master's degree set to attend law school this fall. My parents did a good job keeping me challenged. From the Blaze is Courtney Wheel. A bright teen from Mississippi has exceeded even his parents' high expectations after already earning a master's. He is now set to attend law school this fall. Jimmy Chili Migras, 15, of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, has always been smart. His parents claim that he began speaking in full sentences by the time he was 2, and by 12, he was a high school graduate. We always knew that he was bright, but I don't think that we expected he would accomplish so much so fast, said his mother, Erin Chillemingras. Though very clearly smart, Jimmy said that he still struggled growing up. When I did well at something, we kept moving up, so it wasn't easy, he admitted. He credits his parents with identifying his skills and keeping him stimulated. My parents did a good job keeping me challenged, he said. Everyone has their smart areas and their trials too, said Jimmy's father, John Chillemingras. He loves reading, but he had trouble with reading and reading comprehension, so we had to have some outside help to help him diagnose, and when they worked through a plan to figure out how his mind worked. Despite his intelligence, Jimmy's always been expected to contribute around the house and spend time with family. Based on the following report from ABC News, Jimmy may have as many as 4 younger siblings. And I'm really happy to see stuff like this because there's so much out there where people don't get challenged. They're expected to go down through the factory setting because that's what our public school system is, a factory setting, to get you from high school to good little government worker. And very shortly after I got out of high school, they actually started with the skipping grades plan. Many even smaller schools started to get into that and, having other options. I did have some options when I was in school because math and science were both out of my school's reach. My math and science level were both out of my school's reach for me. I struggled with history, surprisingly, with what I do now, and biosciences. But like physics, chemistry, and the math classes, they ran out of math classes for me when I was in 8th grade. But don't ask me to go through an English comprehension class. So with that, and I'm glad to see that. I think especially with the COVID protocols coming into play, I do think that we're going to see some more of this as people are able to individualize their educational experience, especially if homeschool starts to pick up, rather than going through and being treated with the least common denominator. So I'm happy to see something like this. I really am. And the last thing that I like starts off with something that I hate. From Fox News, Discover Financial to reportedly track gun store purchases starting in April. A story that we've been hearing for quite a while from Alexander Hall. The company behind Discover Credit Cards will reportedly be joining a larger initiative to track where cardholders make purchases at gun stores. Multiple payment processors such as Visa, MasterCard, and American Express have already joined a massive project to separately categorize gun shop sales. The move has been hailed as a victory for gun control advocates who argue that a separate categorization for gun store sales will help monitor suspicious activity that could lead to mass shootings. No, it's a backdoor way into a gun registry is what it is. Gun rights advocates, on the other hand, have warned this could bring unwarranted scrutiny for the overwhelming majority of law-abiding gun owners. Discover Financial Services, a provider of credit cards, told Reuters it will allow its network to track purchases at gun retailers come April, making it the first among its peers to publicly give a date for moving ahead with the initiative, which is aimed at helping authorities to probe gun-related crimes, Reuters reported. So, and for obvious reasons, we know that this is not something that I care for, which is why I decided to put the next story on the list in things that I like, because unlike Discover Now, from CNN, under legal threat from GOP lawmakers, MasterCard and Visa paused their plan to track gun sales. That's right. The The two biggest ones in the world, two of them that you likely have in your wallet, even as a debit card, have pulled back on this and realized that this is not going to win them any new customers. And in fact, people will probably cut up their credit cards and go straight to cash at that point. From Nathaniel Mayerson and Matt Egan. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover announced that they will pause a plan to implement a new merchant category code for the nation's gun retailers after political pressure from Republicans. The measure that was designed to help flag potential mass shooters and gun traffickers in the wake of mass shootings. Some financial companies, including MasterCard and Visa, have explored the possibility of tracking gun sales through their payment systems. Advocates say this would help track suspicious transactions of firearms and ammunition and could help flag potential mass shooters and gun traffickers. No, and again, this does nothing but make a gun registry of law-abiding gun owners so they can come back around and say, oh, hey, we saw that you spent this much at this sports shop. Turn them over. We've got armed people here. The merchant category code system would have separately categorized sales at gun and ammunition stores. Nearly every retail item has a merchant category code. Merchant codes track where a consumer used a credit card, but don't flag what specific items were purchased. Previously, gun store sales were classified under general merchandise or sporting goods category. The International Organization for Standardization, based in Geneva, approved the code in September of 2022. The New York Times found in 2018 that electronic payments were used to purchase the guns and ammunition used in some of the country's most lethal mass shootings, including Aurora, San Bernardino, Orlando, and Las Vegas. But 24 Republican attorneys general warned the credit card companies last month that they should not go ahead with their plans. In a letter to CEOs of the car giants, the Republican officials said that adopting a new sales code for gun stores would harm the constitutional rights of gun owners and potentially violate consumer protection and antitrust laws. Not only that, it would lose you a buttload of customers. So, good. I'm happy for that. I think that's the right thing to do. And they're going to try to do it again. The biggest wet dream for gun control advocates is to have a massive gun registry. So again, when they come back out and start rounding them up, they know what houses to go to. And they'd ideally like to have an itemized list of what all is in the house too, for when they go back and round it all up. And now for a couple things that I hate. Number one, from The Blaze, Kamala Harris basically admitting to the propaganda out there. Things get cringy when Kamala Harris laughs that she learned conservatives are bad when she was a little girl. Well, they get cringy when she laughs at anything else too, so I don't know what the surprise is here. From Chris Enlow. I think there was video in this one. I haven't looked in this in a couple days. No, there wasn't video in this one. Vice President Harris claimed on Monday that she knew from an early age that conservatives are bad. Yeah, this administration sure is about unity, isn't it? Speaking about the Biden admin's climate agenda in Colorado, Harris was asked to explain her life has shaped her work on the climate. After claiming it started from her birth because she was born into the San Francisco Bay Area, and the Bay Area takes great pride in being one of the birthplaces of the environmental movement, Harris said that she learned about ecology and conservation when she was growing up, allegedly triggering a contradiction within her ideological paradigm that she could not reconcile. I'm going to share with you a very simple story, which is that I went home one day and I said, "Why are conservatives bad, Mommy?" "Because I thought they were supposed to conserve things," she said while laughing. "I couldn't reconcile it. Now I can." Trying to connect her youth to climate action, Harris then talked about participating in the Save the Bay movement, where she talked about water and air. The comments drew a forceful reaction on social media. In particular, people mocked Harris and questioned the truth of her story, while others said that Harris does the opposite and promote unity. Freedom! She can't reconcile a secure border either, Mommy, the Border Patrol Union mocked. I I did not read this part of the article, so I did not expect that one. That caught me by surprise. I remember saying to my mom, why do progressives want to take all of our freedoms and liberties away? I thought they wanted progress, another person mocked. I'll take things that never happened for 100, another person said. I totally get it. My 7-year-old daughter came up to me this afternoon and said, Daddy, I don't understand why Kamala Harris has to continue to make up blatant lies about her life. It reeks of low self-confidence and inadequacy. Then everyone stood up and clapped, another person mocked. Yeah, there you go. Heels up Harris. That right there is why the left and right will never get along in the near future. We are not different in their eyes. We are bad, one person pointed out. Which is a fair assessment, by the way. But I will point out that this goes the other direction as well. But, I mean, this is a person who ran with the current president on a ticket of unity, who will then come out and say crap like that. Kamala the concubine. I found this one actually after we were live. From the New York Post, Colin Kaepernick accuses white adoptive parents of problematic upbringing, perpetuating racism. From Catherine Dunleavy. Controversial football star Colin Kaepernick stopped getting attention, so he had to go back and say something else. He accused his white adoptive parents of perpetuating racism in a new interview. The former NFL star told CBS Chicago he struggled growing up in a problematic household, though a through line he details in his upcoming graphic novel, Change the Game. So this is about selling books. Look, man, I knew my parents loved me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through, Kaepernick said. It was important to show that this can happen in your own home, and how we be moving forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated. The graphic novel tells the story of Kaepernick's journey from high school into his storied athletic career that heavily centers around his lack of choice in his future. His parents particularly tried to steer him in a direction they thought was best, which led to several fights between them and their adopted son. Why? Just so you know, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of copies of this in China. One of these disagreements he illustrated in the novel was a fight over his hairstyle. Kaepernick, in an attempt to idolize basketball player Allen Iverson, wanted to embrace his blackness by wearing cornrows, but his mother pushed back. His getting what roles, his mother Teresa is cited as saying in the book. Okay. If she lived in Milwaukee in the 90s, she knew what cornrows were. By the way, Colin Kaepernick is from Milwaukee. In reality, she allegedly told him, "Oh, your hair is not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug." Press X to doubt. So, Colin Kaepernick is getting out to go back and sell a bunch of books. So he's trying to make his persona big again. And since he can't go back and do it on the football field, now he has to go and attack his white parents. Alright, and the last thing that there's one more thing I hate after this, but this is a personal anecdote. The last thing that we have on the stack, though, for this, before we head back to the main scene. From the Daily Wire, Katy Perry accused of bullying American Idol contestant. From Katie Jerkovich. Katy Perry has been accused of being a mean girl and bullying American Idol contestant Sarah Beth Liebe during a recent episode. During the hit ABC reality TV talent competition on Sunday, fans of the 38-year-old American Idol judge band said, rather, the 30-year-old American Idol judge was rude to the 25-year-old mother of 3 after Libe's revealed her singing expertise was basically the church choir, the New York Post reported. Which, by the way, is where Katy Perry got her start, too. Is this your dream? Perry asked the contestant, who appeared rattled and simply replied, If it's not your dream, then you need to leave because there's a lot of dreams behind you, Perry added. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, my biggest dream right now is to go out into a highly processed and edited television program, to bypass the years of grind and work, to be shot straight to the top, and have my voice manufactured like Carrie Underwood's. Yeah, that's a dream. Libe admitted she was still processing being away from her kids before she started with her first song, You Know I'm No Good by Amy Winehouse. Not familiar with that song. I might look it up after this. However, Perry seemed unimpressed and prodded her. Come on, we need more. That's not enough. Try Benny and the Jets. Show us what your voice can do, she added. Take it to the limit. No looking back. Sing it like it's your new dream. More of that. Hold it out. The singer then named Libe an accidental American Idol. Look, if it's not your dream, it's not going to go far because I also respect everyone that's walking through that door who will lay down their life for the golden ticket to Hollywood. And that's the problem, right there. Perry and fellow judge Luke Bryan, who I can't stand at this point because he's doing this, ultimately did not vote for the mom to move on to the next round, while Lionel Richie had to go with his gut and didn't. Or I'm sorry, they both did, and Lionel Richie didn't. Yeah, this is not good. But it's not the first time Katy Perry has gone to a contestant and violated that person's confidence or his or her beliefs either, by the way. As soon as I saw this headline, I was reminded of what happened, I think this was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with Katy Perry, when she decided that a young Christian boy who wanted to save his first kiss for someone special, she decided that she had to be that. Let's watch. I am so getting copyright popped by Entertainment Tonight, by the way.
Katy Perry kissed an Idol contestant, and he so did not like it.
Have you kissed a girl and liked it?
No, I've never been in a relationship.
Really?
I can't kiss a girl without being in a relationship.
That's how 19-year-old Benjamin Glazer's American Idol audition started during Monday night's episode.
Come here! Stop. What, on the cheek?
Mm-hmm. You didn't even make the smush sound.
Right, okay. Do you have any water by chance? It's just I kind of wasn't expecting that.
The Oklahoma native was seemingly shook up and after singing got a no from all 3 judges.
I think you were a bit rushed, and maybe that was because I sped up your BPM of the heartbeat.
And now Benjamin tells the New York Times how upset he was by the smooch. Quote, I was raised in a conservative family and I was uncomfortable immediately. I wanted my first kiss to be special. It felt so wrong.
All right, before we get popped by Entertainment Tonight. Yeah, I mean, Katy Perry's got a long history of being problematic. Which is lame because, you know, up until she bleached her hair like that, and I don't know what she looks like now, because I didn't watch the clip of her doing that with the bullying routine. But I mean, you guys know how I feel about dark hair and light-eyed girls. So naturally, that's somebody who I would be drawn to, even though she's the same age as I am. But I mean, it's not going to stop, and it's all for ratings and everything else. And you know, there is still a little part of me in between that doesn't necessarily believe the story from here as what was presented. But that is the second to last thing that I hate, and the last thing that I hate was being discussed while I was at work today, and I was reminded of that because we were talking about finance and vehicles and past places that I had worked and other people had worked, and I was reminded of an incident. The moment that I became anti-government, the very second that I became anti-government, I remember it. And I was kind of always against the government to begin with, but when I was outright anti-government, came in approximately 2008. I was working at a Ford dealer, just fresh out of college, taking some of my first tickets, and was very shortly after Obama came into office, when cash for clunkers got introduced. And I was working at the dealer where they were turning in their cash for clunkers vehicles, things that were going to go get turned over for to get thrown on the truck and either get crushed. But the thing with the cash for clunkers thing is they couldn't just bring it out to a regular junkyard to get crushed. It had to go to somewhere that was approved by the government, so they could monitor and determine that these vehicles were delisted, their vehicle identification numbers were taken off the system, and they were made completely inoperable. But when they came into the dealership, they were to be rendered completely inoperable before they left. Before they went back and got analyzed and again had their registrations undone. And I pulled a ticket of a cash for clunkers vehicle. And I'd seen some of them out back before. I'd seen a few of them out back there. An old Taurus, an old Escort, doors falling off, things that were trailered in, vehicles like that. There was an old Fox body out there that actually had some potential. I remember I was asking about it, and I was told A, it was a cash for clunkers, so we couldn't do anything with it, but B, it also had like 350,000 miles. It was an old Fox body. It was a GT Fox body. It had a 5.0 in it, but it had a massive amount of miles on it. But I pulled a ticket. And I didn't believe it at first when I saw it was cash for clunkers, because it was a 92 Escort. And the mileage on a work order is written right on the work order. So I saw how many miles were on this thing when I got it. There was no rust on it whatsoever. It had always been garage kept. 44,000 miles on a 92 Escort. My instructions: drill several holes into the block so it could never be run again. I don't know how much the dealership gave for that car to send the old lady that brought it back in out with a brand new vehicle, and I don't know what she bought. It's not my business. But I cried a little bit. I did. I legitimately cried a little bit. Not because there's any reason to have any love lost for an Escort, but the fact that the underlying narrative of free government money to get your old, inefficient vehicle off the road took something like this that this woman probably could have taken and sold private party for way more. But it was too important for her to do what the government said and go bring this in and get it off the road, because in 92 the emissions were just too bad. And here, take that government money and go get a brand new car in its place. I cried. I did it. I was just fresh out of college and I needed the job. I did it. But that was the very moment that I became anti-government. The very moment. As soon as my drill bit hit that engine block, I knew how bad the government really was. And I was coming out of the Democrat Party at that time and moving into the neocon aspect of the Bushites, etc. at that time, which I now see as wrong. And, doing that, getting that work order, pushed me in that direction. I still to this day can't believe that I had to do that. I'm sad. Again, a 92 Escort is not it's not a collector's car by any stretch of the imagination. Even if it was in mint condition. It's not something you buy up, you bring people up to your garage and say, hey, look at my Escort. But the fact of the matter is that it could have been anything else. And I don't know what else was coming in out of this. I do remember some of the other vehicles that were sitting behind the dealership. An older 150 that probably could have either had an engine replaced or restored. That's a full frame vehicle. But on the other side, I will admit to the fact that there were many of the vehicles that were coming in like that didn't need to be on the road. I understand that. I don't think the government should be putting out money to get these things off the road, but there were vehicles out there that legitimately didn't need to be on the road. And I know people were still driving them up to the moment that they either stopped working or they got them to the dealership, with strut towers falling out and engines missing and missing catalytic converters and things like that. But a lot of the vehicles that were brought in could have been refurbished, revamped, and saved, restored. Or even had a little bit of minimal work done to it. And then resold for a profit. You know, go back in, get the emissions retested, and make sure they're coming under the emissions of the year that they're in. Instead, they were going out to the government designated scrapyard to get crushed. After having the dealer render them completely inoperable to make sure that there was no temptation to get them back out on the lot. Again, I don't know what they took in for trade on that Escort, but at the time, and this was in 08, they could have easily turned around and put that back on the lot for $5,000 and got it. I bet you they would have got that for that car. For 44,000 miles? Absolutely. But that is the moment that I became anti-government. And with that, we're out of here. We're done. It's over. Oh, we don't have to change the scene. I did that already. Yeah, we're already on the outro. So let's get some music up here and let's go. And I'm going to go listen to that song again. No, I'm going to take a shower first. Then I'm going to go listen to that song again and start to catch my chords. Where's my outro music? There it is. All right, so thank you everybody for coming in here, chatting with me. We had a good crowd tonight. Absolutely. Got some good back and forth with me and you guys as well. Again, you know, I'm getting better with doing the live chat thing because I don't have to go running out of the door to go to work anymore. I like to go get something to eat right now, but I don't have to, like, it's not required of me to go get up off this chair, throw my boots on, and go screaming out the door right now. Which when I was doing the morning show it was. So we'll be back here tomorrow for more news, more headlines. Again, a reminder, no more Friday live chat segment because I do, especially with it getting warmer. I say that as there's a blizzard going on outside in Wisconsin, by the way. But especially with it getting warmer, I do want you guys to be able to go back out and play volleyball and baseball and have a cigar and go on dates and stuff. So I definitely do want that. But definitely come back here if you can tomorrow. Join us again and get your name into the live chat for Monday's dedicated live chat segment. That will be at 7:45 Central Time on Monday night. Looking forward to seeing you guys here next time. Stick around if you're on the Twitch side as we go rating. And until tomorrow, we will see what happens in the next 22 hours of news. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.